Hey everyone, this is Chetna and you're watching ChetChat. So if you're planning to either study, work or live abroad, you're thinking about the English language proficiency tests. And that's where all the confusion begins. First, you wonder which test do I take? And second, you're confused as to whether to take the paper-based test or the computer-based test. So today I will give you a detailed pros and cons of the computer-based test versus the paper-based test to help you choose wisely. So please press that subscribe button and ring that tinker bell right next to it, and also give us a thumbs up because that motivates us to keep producing these wonderful videos for you. Now in this video we will cover three things. First, I will answer some frequently asked questions about English language proficiency tests. 2, I will do a detailed pros and cons of the computer-based test versus the paper-based test. And 3, I will speak to the global CEO of Pearson's, the world's leading learning company, to tell you what goes on behind the computer-based test. So let's quickly begin with those frequently asked questions. So when you go abroad to study, work or live, those countries want to know whether you'll be able to follow their curriculum at university or at work, or just like to be able to live and communicate well within their country. So the English language test is mandatory at most English-speaking countries. Now, these countries are looking at global citizens from across hundreds of different countries, and they're looking for this common yardstick to be able to judge their English fluency. So chances are, even if you studied in an English medium school or college in your home country, you might still have to take the English language proficiency test. Now, this test is almost like a minimum mandatory cutoff that you need to meet. But admissions is a whole other thing. Universities will give you admissions based on your high school grades, your GRE, GMAT, SAT or ACT scores, your essays, your extracurriculars, etc. Now, most universities and immigration offices will give you an exact number on their website. Please go and check that number beforehand. Now, there are several English language proficiency tests available, like the PT Academic, IELTS, TOEFL and Cambridge tests, and a few others. Now, I suggest two strategies. First, go to the website of the university or the authority that is asking you to take this English language test and check which tests do they accept. Strategy number 2 is look at the application deadlines. Not all the tests are available in your city all through the year, but there are some like PT Academic, for example, that offer you test dates which are almost 360 in a year. But I suggest check the forthcoming test dates, check the result declaration dates, and check your application deadlines before you choose which test to take. Now, for both of these tests, paper-based as well as computer-based, you will need to go in person to a predetermined venue that has been allocated to you. You cannot do the computer-based test from home. Roughly, both the paper-based and the computer-based tests are equally long, but they may seem longer or shorter to you depending upon your writing speed or typing speed. While I did mention that the timing is broadly the same, sometimes in paper-based tests, the speaking section is conducted on a different day. whereas in a computer-based test, it can all be done in one go. Usually, paper-based tests are conducted in larger auditoriums with more number of students, approximately around 100 to 150 students at any given test date. However, in computer-based testing, you're likely to have fewer people around you since there's one student per computer. The paper-based test will ask you to write a 250-word essay using a pencil, whereas a computer-based test would require you to have fast typing skills, to move around the text back and forth and complete the test on time. On a computer-based test, you can pick up the text and move it back and forth, delete it and all of that, whereas in a paper-based test, once you've written the essay, it's very hard for you to keep cutting it out, erasing it and writing more lines on that paper. In a paper-based test, it's relatively easy to flip the pages back and forth, whereas in a computer-based test, you will need to flag the question that you want to come back to later. Once you flag the question, it's fairly easy to come back to those questions later on and edit them or relook at them. These tests are typically a race against time. In the paper-based test, you'll find a clock that has been put up on the wall for all of you to see, whereas in a computer-based test, the countdown clock is right in front of you on your screen. So sometimes that just helps to remind you as to how much time is remaining. Since the tests are quite particular about the word limit, in a paper-based test, you might have to either count the words or estimate the words, whereas in a computer-based test, you always have that ticker telling you how many words you've written in that essay. Typically, paper-based tests are conducted on certain fixed dates in the year, and you need to book a slot for yourself typically 1 month in advance. Whereas in a computer-based test, chances are it's available to you almost 360 days of the year, and you can sometimes book it even up to 24 hours in advance. Now let's look at the test itself to see if there are differences. The listening section is a very big section of the test. Now in a paper-based test, the audio is played on a speaker in this large room full of 100 to 150 people, and sometimes there may be issues relating to clarity, especially since the person is speaking in an accent that may be foreign to you. In a computer-based test, however, each student gets a personal headphone, and we've noticed that the ability to receive clear inputs into the listening section are higher in the computer-based test. In the paper-based format, you're speaking to a real person. In the computer-based format, you're speaking to a computer. Now, if I were you, I would choose the test based on my comfort level of speaking to a real person or speaking in a personal space to my computer. So this is a personal preference, but I just want to add that in a computer-based test, the advantage is that not having a human being there sometimes reduces the human bias. Talking about practice, there's no real difference between the two, because for both type of tests, you have a lot of practice and mock materials available online for you. In the paper-based test, since there's human checking, they may sometimes take up to 2 weeks to declare the result. Whereas in the computer-based testing, especially at the PTE academic, you may get your results even up to 5 working days later. Overall, I would say if you're the sort of person that likes to underline a paper and make notes in the margin, then the paper-based test is for you. But if you like typing on a computer and reading off a screen, then the computer-based test may be just for you. However, I strongly recommend that you take a paper-based and a computer-based mock test prior to making this decision, so you're extremely confident when you go into that exam hall. And now, let's meet with John Fallon, the global CEO of Pearson's, one of the leading learning companies, and ask him a few questions of what goes on exactly behind a computer-based test. So let's go. So hi John, and welcome to ChetChat.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Pearson's has sort of been the pioneer on the computer-based testing, especially when it comes to the English language testing. So talk about how you believe that this computer-based testing is advantageous for the test taker.
First of all, it's a much more secure test. Second, it's much more reliable. it's much more convenient, and it also provides the result much quicker, and it's available 365 days a year. So against every measure, it's clearly the best means of judging somebody's English language speaking capabilities. The software is judging your fluency, it's judging your use of grammar and vocabulary, and just the overall quality and degree of sophistication with which you are speaking English. And the reason our machine is able to do that is because this is machine learning that we've invested in over many years, and then we've taught the machine. So to get to this point, we'll have had thousands upon thousands of tests marked by humans, which have graded every single possible level of English language acquisition, and that's then been used to teach the machine, and the machine then actually marks more accurately than the human, and as I say, does so without bias or prejudice, which I think is really, really important and much more appropriate and democratic. We have built out a platform called Me Pro, which builds on a lot of what we've learned around the very best ways to personalize and adapt learning to help professionals to master the English language skills that will help them both to do well in the Pearson Test of English, but as importantly, to do well in their careers, where they need English to work as part of a global organization or to get promoted in their job or whatever it is. And so Me Pro is very much about providing a platform that is personal, adaptive, that combines the really very best high quality content and pedagogy with great assessment and capabilities as well.
Sure, but thank you so much. It was lovely talking with you.
Thank you.
So hey, I'm sure you found that really useful, and if you did, give us a thumbs up so we know what to produce for you in future, and press that subscribe button and the tinker bell right next to it. And happy watching!